Right, we now come to the urgent question. Secretary of State Claire Coutinho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Control room operators at the National Energy System Operator have the life or death job of balancing our electricity supply and demand. If they don't get it right...
And gentlemen, said just ask the question, then we'll come to the speech.
Oh, sorry.
Just ask the question now.
Just ask the urgent question. Yeah,
Minister, come on.
I have the question here, Mr. Speaker, don't worry. On the 7th of July, the Shadow Secretary of State wrote to the Government alleging practices of poor information handling and interference in operational decision-making in the control room. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, the Government takes this issue incredibly seriously. Since the allegations came to light, we've been engaging with NESO and Ofgem to establish the facts. Both myself and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, have spoken to the Chief Executive of NESO. NESO has now appointed an external legal firm to conduct a full investigation into the claims, with a report to be delivered to the Board's Head of Risk and Controls and to Ofgem in the coming weeks. The legal firm will interview members of the control room without any other NESO employees being present. NESO has already responded publicly that all operational decisions are taken solely by authorised operational control room personnel, and that NESO does not instruct employees to avoid retaining records. We will work closely with Ofgem to monitor both the progress and the outcome of the investigation. However, it would be wrong to preempt that outcome, and the investigation must be allowed to run its course. I do, however, Mr. Speaker, want to make it very clear that during this period of unprecedented extreme heat, the Great British grid remains stable, no customers were impacted by tight electricity margins, and NESO had a number of tools available to them to ensure our energy security. Great Britain has one of the most resilient energy systems in the world, and the Government works closely with NESO and the wider sector to ensure that this resilience is constantly maintained. Market notices such as those that were issued by NESO during the heatwaves are standard operational tools that can be used to support energy security, and these were used successfully to maintain grid stability. However, it is important to acknowledge that extreme heat events such as those experienced this summer are likely to occur more frequently as our climate continues to change. My department will continue to work with NESO and Ofgem to identify any lessons from these events and to work to ensure our electricity system remains resilient in the future. Ofgem, as the independent regulator, are also working with NESO to initiate a formal review of events during the June heatwave. I welcome this important transparency and look forward to working with NESO, with Ofgem, to take forward the lessons learned.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Control room operators at the National Energy System Operator have the life or death job of balancing our electricity supply and demand. If they don't get it right, we will have blackouts, and in blackouts, people die. It is that serious, which makes what I'm about to say all the more extraordinary. I've been approached by multiple whistleblowers within our grid operator. The allegations are that first, on the 23rd of June, the operator failed to meet the grid security standards put in place to prevent blackouts. Second, that the corporate affairs team interfered with operational decisions. That is not something that the Minister denied, putting the reputation of the operator above security of supply. And third, that operational decisions are being recorded in live documents with no audit trail, again something the Minister did not deny. I first raised questions on the 2nd of June. Since then, we have had 3 public electricity margin notices, warnings to the market that we may be short on supply. I cannot stress enough that this is completely unprecedented. Multiple whistleblowers have now come forward. This too is unprecedented. I've raised this twice now in the House, and despite the seriousness of the allegations, shockingly on both occasions the Government dismissed me as scaremongering. Considering the consequences of blackouts to people's lives, this is nothing short of a disgrace. The NESO has now agreed to do an external independent investigation. This is positive. However, whilst the Government washes its hands of this situation, the investigation that has been set up is a complete sham. It will not look into whether or not the grid is being run securely or whether there was a breach of security standards on the 23rd of June. It does not grant anonymity to any control room operator who wants to come forward, Those who are not selected by NESO management will have to ask those managers to participate if they have concerns. And remarkably, the Chief Executive of NESO on an all-staff call on Monday prejudged the outcome of the investigation by calling the allegations false, while senior management said the whistleblowers had let them down. Let me be clear. The whistleblowers who've put the national interest over their own careers should be celebrated for their courage and their integrity, not denigrated. So will the government finally get a grip on this? And can the Minister guarantee that every single control room operator who wants to share their concerns will be given the opportunity to do this anonymously?
Can I just remind the front bench, nothing personal, far from it, but you've only got 2 minutes. And please, we can try and stick to the rules. It's very hard when we can't. And thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, can I just reiterate what I said at the beginning of the statement, that the Shadow Secretary of State raised these concerns, whistleblowers that have been in touch with her for the first time at DESNA's oral questions. I responded to her in that oral question session to say if she had details she should share them with the department. She did that, and we have subsequently from that taken this matter incredibly seriously, and a process has been put in place to conduct an independent review to take into account the information that she has shared. If there is more information she has from other subsequent whistleblowers, I'm sure she'll share that with us. We take this very seriously, so nobody is washing their hands of this matter at all. What I have said to her before, though, is that she is conflating two things, I think willfully, in fact, which is firstly to say that there are questions to be raised that have been raised with her by whistleblowers, which we absolutely will now investigate. But secondly, she then suggests that the electricity grid was in a state in which blackouts were imminent, which is simply not the case. And I would just gently say to her that it is absolutely irresponsible in this place and on social media to suggest that our energy system was at risk in recent periods. Electricity margin notices are a standard tool. I don't have time, Mr. Speaker, in my answer to read all of the dates at which electricity margin notices were issued under the previous government, but I can tell you they are a standard tool that has been deployed a number of times in the past. And I think we all have a duty to be careful about our words in this House, and ramping up the rhetoric doesn't get to the facts that we both, I think, share an interest in understanding. So I say that point, first of all, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, can I just share the comment she made at the beginning about the absolutely critical role that the operators in the NESO control room play every day. I was privileged to visit the control room in this role and to see the job that they do. They have an enormous amount of responsibility on their shoulders. That is partly why we should recognise how seriously they take their role, and partly why this investigation that is being taken independently from NESO is so important to uncover the facts. I would just say the terms of reference have been published and are available on Ofgem's website, and it states very clearly interviews with power system managers and other control room personnel who worked on shift during that period of time will be interviewed. It is right and proper that that is the case. If there are other personnel that have an insight into this, it has been confirmed that they will be able to come forward and be part of that interview process so we can establish all of the facts. But, Mr. Speaker, I would just finish this point by saying we take these allegations incredibly seriously, but it is right and proper, as I think everyone in this House would expect, that we then wait for the outcome of an inquiry, which will take a matter of weeks, to establish the full facts of this matter so that we can put in place any additional learning from it, but also so that we can continue to ensure that the country has confidence that our energy system is resilient. We met the electricity demand on every single one of the days in question. I don't for a second doubt that it was difficult on some of those days, as it was across all of Europe. The answer to that is to invest further in the stability of the grid and to tackle, I have to say, fundamentally, the question of why our temperatures are rising year after year after year, which is climate change. Those are two fundamental issues that, if she genuinely believes in the long-term impact of what's happening, I hope she'll change course herself and support the policies that would tackle this. But in the meantime, we will take this issue seriously. We will investigate all allegations that come forward to us to ensure the confidence in the energy system and that it's operating exactly as we would expect it to do.
Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is complete chaos at the National Energy Systems operator. Complete chaos. Whistleblowers are phoning politicians expressing their concerns about blackouts. Independent investigators have had to be appointed, and they had to cut the interconnector for exports without notice in order to guarantee supplies. I wrote to the Chief Executive, Fintan Sly, 2 weeks ago. I've had no reply to my detailed question. There's an arrogance and complacency by the Minister. Can he guarantee there will be no blackouts? Does he have complete confidence in the Chief Executive? Absolutely. And will this independent investigation be published for us all to see?
Minister.
Well, first of all, look, Mr Speaker, it is right and proper we're here talking about this issue, but I can assure him there's absolutely no complacency in the part of me or the government. I take my responsibilities incredibly seriously, as does NISO and as does Ofgem as the operator, and I think he should just be careful of his language on an issue as serious as this. And he shouts from a sedentary position about blackouts. That's exactly the point I'm making, Mr Speaker. This is irresponsible language. We're not in a debate across the House. It is totally irresponsible. I'm not sure how much more clearly, Mr Speaker, I can say to the House, but I could point the honourable gentleman to some reading material that's been published on the nature of what happened during that week. I've not denied at all that it was an extreme weather event that caused pressure on the grid, but at no times did frequency move outside of the normal operating range. At no time did we not meet demand across the country. At no time were we close to disconnecting anyone from the system whatsoever, far less any potential blackout, as he frequently likes to share on social media. We have a robust and resilient energy system that came under pressure and it responded exactly as it should do. The allegations that have subsequently been made about how decisions were made that day are serious and will be taken seriously in the investigations, and we'll learn any lessons that come from that. That doesn't detract from the fact that we met electricity demand in every single one of the days it was under pressure, and he can dispute that all he wants, but it's a basic fact.